Chances are, if you've been around the internet, and especially if you're familiar with meme culture, you've heard the song Scatman.
I'm a Scatman.
The hit single by Scatman John was released in late 1994 and became a worldwide success the following year. But as popular as this song is, and as many parodies and spoofs as you may have seen it in, what is the story behind this song, and behind its prolific, if only briefly, songwriter? The details may surprise you if you're not familiar with his life already. This is that story. This is the story of Scatman John. John Paul Larkin was born on March 13, 1942 in El Monte, California. When John was just a small child, his mother would introduce him to the world of music, playing tunes for him that even at such a young age, he was able to attach to.
She would sing, "My mama done told me when I was in knee pants," and she told me that before I was even talking, I would sing. So I was injected with music from her at a very, very early age. She passed on all of her talent to moi.
However, when John finally got around to speaking, he realized quickly that he had a problem. John suffered from a severe stutter, and his childhood would often be a turbulent and emotionally traumatic time as a result.
In about the 6th grade, where I was to stand up in front of a classroom and try to recite a current event that was going on at that time. But I got up in the classroom, broke out tears, and cried and went back to my seat. I could not get the first word out.
I remember one time, several of my friends locked themselves up in a house and started making these grotesque sounds at me. And I waited for them for 2 days, and I finally got them.
Still, despite his problems, John continued to be fascinated by music, particularly jazz. He discovered that, while singing, his stutter wasn't nearly as much of an inhibition.
I couldn't talk, so I had to find some language to speak. The music in the house I found served me quite well, in that I didn't stutter when I sang. So I would go around all day in Catholic school, "Our Father, who art in heaven." So it was like, it's real strange. The stuttering was turbulent, but so it inspired the musical aspects in me to come out. So I think all through my childhood, all the way into my teenagehood, I had a concept of like, I'll show them. I may stutter, but watch this. I'll show those kids.
At the age of 12, after many requests to his mother, John acquired and began to learn the piano.
I sat down and I played, and I figured out the harmonies and all of that.
And was introduced to the art of scat singing 2 years later, through records by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, among others. The piano provided John with a means of artistic expression, a way to convey himself while getting around his speech difficulties at the same time. He conceded that, quote, "I hid behind the piano because I was scared to speak." It was at this transitional period of his life that John claims he began to rely on drugs and alcohol to quell his sadness and insecurities. In the 1970s, John became a professional jazz pianist, playing many engagements in jazz clubs throughout the 70s and 80s. In 1981, he had his first known performance on a studio album, in Animal Sounds by Sam Phipps, and in 1984, things started changing pace. While entertaining on a cruise ship one day, John thought to himself, "This captive audience can really only go so far." He decided to take his first monumental step away from his insecurities and add singing to his act for the very first time. The scatting he also added on a whim earned him a huge applause, and this gave him the confidence to begin singing at all of his future performances. In 1986, he released the self-titled album John Larkin. The album was produced by John himself, along with Marcia Larkin. Now more confident in his abilities, to advance his career, he moved to Berlin, Germany in 1990. Once he was there, John discovered an appreciative culture centered around jazz and started playing jazz gigs. He earned standing ovations at the 400-seat Cafe Moscow, and as he told the Times, "I began to own that I really could sing, that I was good." The following year, he met Manfred Zaringer, who signed him to his production company Iceberg and became his manager. Zaringer pitched John's various recorded demos and improvised bits to record companies, and after adding some club beats to the mix, the product seemed to begin to shape up. John's scat rapping skills were, as it turns out, quite good, and in no small part helped, ironically enough, by his stuttering.
Stuttering has forced me to pronounce my words. To try to be fluent sort of has made me try to pronounce my words. So pronouncing taught me to scat sing. It's pronunciation, see.
John had an unusual ability to sing chords with as many as 4 notes at a time. This, combined with scat, the proficiency of his pronunciation honed as a result of his stuttering, modern urban rap, and dance music all came together to form a brilliant sound. At first, John was resistant. He worried that listeners would realize that he stuttered, but his wife Judy suggested he should talk about it directly in his music to combat this. With all of the jigsaw pieces fitting together, Zaringer rushed John to a recording studio, and 6 hours later, Scatman was produced.
I'm a Scatman. I'm a
The track instantly became a favorite with German radio programmers, and by early 1995 the record had sold over 500,000 copies in Germany. The song, though slow in sales at first, soon enough hit the top 10, reaching number 1 in many countries, with 6 million records sold worldwide. The song seemed to hit a note with many people, as it spoke both of John's own struggles with stuttering and on how everyone, no matter the problems they face in life, can work toward their dreams and achieve something if they put their mind to the task. The follow-up single, Scatman's World, entered the UK singles chart at number 10, which met lesser but still noteworthy levels of success. It sold 1 million copies and charted highly throughout Europe. Following this success, John released an album also titled Scatman's World, which entered the top 10 album charts of many countries, including Germany, Switzerland, Finland, and Norway. The album eventually sold millions of copies worldwide, and John began a promotional and concert tour of Europe and Asia. He was nominated Artist of the Year in Japan, and also won the Golden Europa Award, as well as the MTV Music Award for Best Male Artist. John wasn't content to simply cruise on his newfound fame and fortune, however, as he used his reach to campaign on behalf of stutterers. Being presented with the Annie Glenn Award from the National Association of Communicative Disorders in 1996.
All my life, I've done everything except allow myself to stutter. Now I'm at the point where it's like, I could have a heart attack trying not to stutter. With all that control, it would be like holding a beach ball under the water. You know, when you hit 50 years old, you can't hold a beach ball under the water anymore. Pretty soon the real stuff shows. So I've given myself permission to go ahead and stutter. Maybe I can help somebody out there. Maybe I can help the kids who stutter or have other problems. Maybe I can, maybe if the Scatman can do it, so can you, which is part of the words to Scatman. I don't need to be a pop star, but I do need to try to help out wherever I can. So that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
The second Scatman John album, Everybody Jam, was released that same year, and while it was nowhere near as successful on an international level, the album took off in Japan, where he was also given plenty of merchandise as well as several commercial deals. In late 1998, John was diagnosed with lung cancer, but continued his musical work despite the suggestion to take it easy. In June 1999, he released his fourth and final album, Take Your Time, and shortly after went on a 24-city US tour. At a concert on November 26, 1999 in Cleveland, Ohio, John collapsed on stage during the show's finale. Initially, the crowd believed the collapse to be part of the show, until an announcement was made that the show would be ending due to a medical situation. John was transported to the Cleveland Clinic, where he was stabilized. The following week, he returned home to Los Angeles. Even while suffering, John remained positive, saying, "Whatever God wants is fine by me. I've had the very best life. I have tasted beauty." John Paul Larkin passed away at his home in Los Angeles on December 3, 1999, at the age of 57. He was surrounded by his wife Judy, his mother Harriet, and his brother Bill. He was later cremated, and his ashes were scattered at sea near Malibu, California. The story of John's life is a surprisingly impactful one that teaches us that our passions are worth chasing after, that it's never too late to succeed at something you love to do, that no matter the difficulties you face, the disadvantages you suffer through, or the challenges that may tower over you, you can do it. It's a simple message, one that's told often and by many, but few people ever tell it like John did.
I honestly think that creation gives us all problems for a purpose. I think problems can be fuel. Because if I hadn't have stuttered, I wouldn't have asked why, what, where, when, what's going on. So because I stuttered from an early age, I was always going inward to find out what's happening. So it's actually, as painful as it is and was, it serves me as a fuel to not only step over the shame of stuttering, but to accept and encounter all my other problems, sort of like to maybe to grow. Maybe creation gives us problems to grow with. I don't know, but for me, it's certainly been a source of fuel.
John turned his childhood curse into his greatest strength, and though it was brief, enjoyed the recognition and praise of many around the globe. So if you take anything away from this video, as well as from the iconic song that John rose to fame from, it's that if the Scatman can do it, so can you.
Everybody stutters one way or the other, so check out my message to you. As a matter of fact, don't let nothing hold you back. If the Scatman can do it, so can you.